University, I should say.
Okay, glad to see you here today. We have Scott Rosales, is a Digitizing Associate for Publications at the Minnesota Historical Society. Scott earned his graduate degree in archival studies from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and his undergraduate in history from Metropolitan State University in St. Paul. Since then, he has worked to make the history of Minnesota as told through newspapers available to researchers around the world. His favorite subject to search in the Minnesota Digital Hub is the reporting of old baseball games. So we're happy to have Scott here, and we'll schedule is he's going to talk for about 45 minutes, and then there'll be like a half an hour or so of questions, and then we will finish up at 1:30. So let's give Scott a great hand for coming up to Eveleth.
Thank you, Roger. Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to be here with you today. My name is Scott Rosales. I'm a Digitization Associate for the Digital Newspaper Program at the Minnesota Historical Society. I thank you for being here so we can talk about newspapers, digital newspapers for the Historical Society in our Digital Newspaper Hub. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about newspapers at MNHS. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the Digitization Hub, what it is, what you can find on there, what you won't find on there, and some of the decisions that are made on what goes into the hub and what is accessible, as well as some of the behind the scenes of how we get the materials into the hub. So you'll see some of the software and some of the machines that we use for scanning. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the functionality of the hub. So I'm going to show you some live examples of searching, some of the things that you can do when using the hub for some of your searches. And then we're going to end, I'm going to give you a little sneak preview of the future of the hub, which is the Pioneer Press collection. It's using a different software than we are currently using for our hub. It uses Veridian, and we are currently using a software called ProSeek. And so I'm going to show you some of the searches there and what it looks like. And so right now it's just the Pioneer Press, but next year we're going to begin the very slow process of beginning to migrate millions of pages of newspapers over to this new site. So to start, let me briefly tell you about newspapers at the Minnesota Historical Society. Since before even statehood, MNHS has been collecting newspapers from all across the state. Our collection spans from the very first newspaper published in the state, or in the territory at the time. That was the Minnesota Pioneer in April 1849, to the most current issues of papers still in circulation. A number that unfortunately does seem to get lower every year. So far, we have around 74,000 reels of microfilm that have been created since the 1950s. Digitization of MNHS microfilm began in 2007. We started by using outside vendors for all of our digitization. The Digital Newspaper Hub was developed in 2013, and starting in 2017, a pilot program was started for digitizing current newspapers. And in 2018, the digitization of our historic newspapers on microfilm moved in-house, and we began to do all the digitization inside. And we've been refining that process ever since. Now, if you're not familiar with the Minnesota Digital Newspaper Hub, it is a searchable website from the Minnesota Historical Society that makes millions of pages available for all researchers all across the world. Included are geographically and culturally diverse newspapers published between 1849 and today, with new content added regularly. As of September 2025, the hub contains more than 8 million pages of newspapers, spanning over 700 newspaper titles from over 300 towns and cities all across Minnesota. Full text searching is available across all the newspapers, along with map and calendar browse features. Some additional facts about the hub. As I said, it is free to use. There are papers in 14 languages, including English. Most recently, we added a Yiddish paper from Minneapolis. The statewide content coverage includes major daily newspapers as well as small town weeklies. It includes newspapers with a variety of different affiliations and specializations, trade, religious affiliation, populist, labor, different political affiliations, school newspapers, journals, different racial and ethnic groups, and there's also papers written and published by the prisoners at Stillwater Prison. And we try to add new content every month, but it is always increasing. We are adding new content all the time. So, I've touched on what the hub has to offer, and I'll talk a little bit about the digital newspaper team that works to make our newspapers accessible to all of you. Our team consists of 9 full-time staff members working through 3 different digitization streams, with many projects going on simultaneously. We have a very full schedule. Right now, our digitization is scheduled 12 months out from the time of funding of a new project. We also have different project partners. We have done the National Digital Newspaper Project, NDMP, which is a joint project overseen by the Library of Congress and the National Endowment of the Humanities. We have worked with CELCO, Southeast Libraries Cooperating, so that's a lot of these southeastern libraries over digitizing their papers. We've also done a Swedish American newspaper project, which is partnered with the National Library of Sweden, as well as working with county historical societies and libraries, such as the Eveleth Heritage Society and the Pope County Historical Society. In addition to digitizing from microfilm and print newspapers, we are also able to process born digital files. A common example is publishers sending us a PDF of an issue that we did not originally have. We are then able to take that PDF and split it and turn it into a TIFF format image, which is what we use for all of our work. So I'm going to briefly go over our 3 digitization streams that I mentioned and show off some of the equipment and software that we use to produce our images for the hub. The first stream is the MNHS newspaper microfilm collection. These were print newspapers, microfilmed, mainly in the 1960s through 1990s. We started even before then, but that's where the bulk of them are going to be from. The microfilm is scanned in-house on a Meckel Mach 12, pictured right here. It is my favorite machine that we have at MNHS. We create a TIFF format image of the scans. As you can see, the microfilm going through the feeder. Those TIFFs are then imported into a software that we call DocWiz, and I'll show you some screenshots of DocWiz so you can see what that looks like. Everything goes through DocWiz. The Meckel is capable of scanning a roll of microfilm of 400 to 500 images in about 10 minutes. Through this stream, we process our NDMP work, all of our historical newspapers, our CELCO work, and most of our donor and partner projects. We end up scanning about 250,000 pages a year using this microfilm scanner. Our second stream is our current backlog stream. We define backlog as being between 2008 and 2015. And 2016 to current is considered current. So this includes around 300 newspapers. Like I mentioned before, that title does kind of shrink a little bit every year. Two more papers up here in the north just closed within the last year. These papers are scanned on a Widetech 36DS. That's DS for dual sheet. You'll notice the 6 arrows. Each of those are pointing to one of the cameras on the Widetech. It is a quad site scanner, meaning we can get 4 pages worth of scans from feeding in the paper once. This means that the average technician can scan about 700 pages in a 2-hour shift. There's one downside to the scanner in that there is a width limit to the pages that you can put through. So I'll tell you about how we solve that issue coming up. The Widetech uses a software called NewsClip for scanning. You got a little screenshot of it right on over here. There are fields there for entering in all the metadata that we need, such as publisher title, the issue date, how many pages are in the issue, whether or not there's any inserts in the issue. All of that information gets entered in by hand by the technicians. The scans are then output as TIFF formats and then go into DocWiz. For the stream, most of these titles will have copyright restrictions that limit their usage outside of the History Center. They will be accessible to anyone who is at the Gale Family Library at the History Center. Only if we have permission from the publisher are we allowed to share them more widely. With this stream, we do about 650,000 pages a year. And then our last stream is what we refer to as gaps. And gaps is newspaper issues that were not previously held by MNHS on microfilm. So this is a Versa right on over here. You can see it's a flatbed. It's got a camera. There are 2 photon light stands that shine on the workstation. There's a glass top, and it has a rising table powered by an air compressor. And this allows us to push the paper up under the glass to get a nice flat image. The Versa has a 150 megapixel camera, so it's able to capture extremely clear photos. 350 to 600 DPI, though our projects are mostly in the 350 to 400 range. Next to the Versa is the software that we use for this, Capture One. It's one great thing about the software that we use is that it is able to do a lot of different things with many tools and features. The bad thing about the software is that it can do a lot of different things with many tools and features. It was designed for photography. So we've been able to, through trial and error, customize it is the word, so that it does exactly what we need it to, and we're able to ignore all the extra bells and whistles that come along with the software. So with this machine, we're able to capture papers that are too large or too fragile to be run through the Widetech scanner. These can be loans and donations from local historical societies, libraries, or even individuals. So I've mentioned it a couple of times. All streams lead to DocWiz. So I want to provide a very brief overview of DocWiz because this really is the software that makes everything else work. The TIFF images that we capture through any of the 3 previous streams go through all of these steps here after being imported into DocWiz. For microfilm and Versa projects, everything is done by hand through each step. But for the Widetech, those are all done automatically. The software picks up the day scans at midnight or just after midnight, does all the process automatically, and we only need to get involved if something happens. But For each step, we split apart a reel. So if it's a 500 image reel, we'll split it into little chunks of anywhere between 60 and 75 pages. That'll make it easier for processing. We then move it along to cropping, where we take that original image and we crop it down so that it's only about a 1/8 of an inch or a 1/4 of an inch outside the original newspaper page, so you don't get all the extra stuff. Zoning is adjusting all the text blocks, and I'll show you an example of that in the next slide, where we make sure that all the text is being captured correctly in a way that will be searchable for users. Structure is we add the issue dates, and also in zoning is where we define the issue boundaries, so where the issues start and end. And then finally, output is when everything's been done, a package is created of all the different formats that we need for the hub, and someone does a QC review to make sure that all the other steps were done correctly. So it is at first. We've trained a lot of different people on it, and at first it seems really daunting, and then you really kind of get into learning its peculiarities. So this is an example of a page in the task where we set the issue boundaries. We can see all the check boxes to the side. A checked box at the very top shows that it is going to be the beginning of an issue. And then right here, you can see all the different text throughout the page has been captured in individual boxes. The main thing that we look for when we're zoning is to making sure that columns are not joined together into one zone, so that if you do any kind of searching, if there's a line break and your text continues on the next line, the OCR may not capture that because it's trying to read all the way across the paper. So we spend, that's probably the most time-consuming portion of DocWhiz, is making sure that the OCR is read correctly, but it's worth it. From here, the next step that we would go to is actually dating the issue, where we look at the individual masthead. A thing that may come up sometimes is publishers sometimes forget what day they're published on. They would say it's Wednesday, September 13th, but September 13th of that particular year was actually a Friday. So there's a lot of misdating that we have to capture. So that's why we look very closely at each individual date. From here, we then output after doing the dating, and that creates a package of images and a file, XML file. We get a PDF, a TIFF format, and a JP2 image files. And then there will be an XML file that has all the OCR in it, so that everything is kept nice and separate. The PDF is for saving as well. The JP2s are for display, and then the TIFFs are for long-term preservation. So, what is not in the hub? There are going to be some things that will be missing. This is partly because some papers were never received at time of publication. Some of them were missing, or some of them were damaged. The hub is incomplete. Only about 7% of the total newspaper collection has been digitized at this time. And many of the titles have only been partially digitized. Our title selection is based on the funders' sources. So some funders will select their own titles. They know exactly what it is that they would like to digitize, with or without our guidance. In some cases, with our NDMP project, we have an advisory board that helps us decide which titles we'll be using when we are doing an NDMP grant. There are also copyright considerations that may restrict the title selection and the online accessibility of items. And to talk a little bit more about that. So, currently 1929 and earlier are in the public domain and may be freely digitized and made available online. 1930 to 1977 may be under copyright, and research is going to be required for us to decide whether or not they can be digitized. The newspaper issues in this date range are very likely to be eligible for digitization and be posted freely online. Very few newspaper publishers jumped through the hoops necessary to obtain copyright in these years. 1978 and later are presumed to be under copyright. So digital access to these issues is available only from within the Gale Family Library at the Minnesota History Center, unless the publisher has given us written permission for wider access. We currently only have a handful of these agreements with publishers. So nearly all of our recently published digitized content is accessible only from the computers in the library at the History Center. So all of that has led to the final product, which is the Digital Newspaper Hub. We're going to take a little tour of the hub. We're going to begin at the Newspaper Hub portal site. And I have I have it up so that we can look at it all together. Nope, that's my slideshow. There we go. So this is the portal site, and it gives you information regarding our digitization program. You can access this from the Explore tab on the mnhs.org homepage. And of special note here is going to be the About the Titles. So this link right here will give you a list of all the titles that are going to be found in the hub. You'll see that all the titles are underlined so that we can click on those. Each of these columns here are sortable. So you can find the place of publication, everything from Ada to bracket Stillwater. There is Zumbrota, it's a little bit further down, but because of cataloging, sometimes the brackets will come in and those will be after. But there you go, Z, Zumbrota. And then also the specialization of a newspaper. So if we know what the specialization is, in this case, there's a U of M student newspaper that is available. There's trade and tourism papers, Swedish language, labor papers. Those will be listed there. So if you're looking for a particular subject for researching, you can use that. Okay. And then when you click on each title, it'll take you to a direct link to those issues in the hub, as well as a title essay. This essay is for the farmer's wife. Not every title is going to have a title essay, but new essays are being added all the time. We're going to go. Nope. Okay. So browsing the issues. When you select Search the Newspapers on the portal site, you are brought to the Newspaper Hub database. The database opens up on the Browse Issues tab right up here, and that gives you all the newspapers available. Across the top of the navigation bar are other selections. You can browse by date as well. You can do a keyword search, both just a simple keyword search as well as a more advanced search, and we'll go over both of those. There's a map search. There is an About the Titles link, and finally there is a Help tab that will take you to ProSeeks, the software developers help page. So for browsing issues, there is a drop-down menu right here where it says Titles. And when you click on that, the default is all. If you are looking for a specific newspaper, you can just uncheck all and then scroll through until you find the paper that you're looking for. So I'm going to scroll down until we get to one of our Eveleth papers. This is a lot easier on a desktop with a mouse. Just scroll, 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 scroll. I don't think it's doing it. There you go. Oh, unfortunately, it is not cooperating with me. Well, I'll tell you what we can do. Yeah. Well, that one works. Okay. So there is some filters over here to the side, as you can see. And you can select filtered out by your title, your years published. The subject would, the country, because we have some items that are, especially with the Swedish American project that we're working on, there are some from Canada. State, you can narrow it down by that, as well as county and then city. In this case, we're going to select Eveleth, and it will show us all of our Eveleth papers now. There are 10 titles that we have digitized from Eveleth, and they will all be listed right over here. Let's say we want to look at the Eveleth News Clarion. And now, starting right there, it will say that there is 1,007 issues of this paper. We can then sort them. So we have title and publication date. We can also just do it by publication date and title if we have multiple titles that we're looking at. That wouldn't change this here. It would still start with September 24th, 1942. But we can narrow it down even more if we wanted to see just items that were published, say, in April. So here's all of our April issues of the Eveleth News Clarion. So once you have found an issue that you would like to look at, you would click on the issue, and this is the page viewer. So ProSeek has made it so there are a number of different options that are available to you. There is zoom or zoom out. You can fit to width, so that I will enlarge it, or you can fit to the height. What was that?
I didn't see what you were pushing.
Oh. Yep, right down here there's a couple. And then there's also a zoom. There is a full search text. You can do the full text searching from right up top here in the corner. So we will say, we'll just look at the word labor because we know it's right there in one of the headlines so you can see. And it's thinking. In every instance now in the issue where the word labor appears, it shows up and it is highlighted. There's also a brightness and contrast where you can adjust those. There's a button right over here next to our search. So you can adjust as necessary. Don't go too far in either direction. close that. And then there's information if you're looking for any particular information regarding donors or when this was digitized. There is a metadata information that will provide you with the title, which collection it's from, the issue date that you're looking at, language information, and then it will say digitization supported through funding. Thank you, Roger. And it gives copyright information as well. It also provides you with the Library of Congress cataloging number as well, and tells you right when it was first output from DocWiz. So along the left-hand side here are thumbnails of each page of the issue. So you can also use that to scroll through.
So like when you put in labor for the word, will it pick up that word in the whole issue of the paper? Okay.
Yep. We'll go through the search results a little bit more closely later on, so you'll be able to see how to navigate that.
Is there any indication on thumbnails where the hits are? So if you look at each thumbnail, does it tell you which one had a hit?
Not on the thumbnails, but a couple of slides down, a few slides down, we'll get more into like the search results and what they look like and how to navigate the different hits that you come across. So there's also a browse by date option. Again, the default is all. I'm going to give this one more try. No, it just wants to go right back to the top. Okay. So we're going to use, since it's here, we're going to use the Aitken age. So when you select a title, each year that we have issues for that particular title will come up with how many issues for that year. So when we click on 1890, each of those white squares with an underlined date is a date in which we have an issue. This is very useful for us when we are looking through and seeing where we might have gaps in our collection. Once you've selected a title and you've selected the year that you would like, you can then click on that and it will take you to the issue. All right. And then one thing when you're using browsing for different issues, you can see now that this Eveleth News Clarion is highlighted in red. That lets you know you've already looked at that issue. So that's very useful if you're looking through a bunch of different issues. You'll be able to know which ones you've already looked at in your searching. So then next, we're going to look at map search. We did skip search, but we'll come back to it. So you can see, let's see here. That you can zoom in, and each location in which we have newspapers is highlighted with one of those purple dots. When you click on it, a list of all the newspapers that we have available for that particular city will come up. Anything that is in black and underlined is something that is openly available no matter where you are. These gray ones are not able to be clicked on. Those are ones that are only going to be available to be used at the Gale Family Library at the History Center, and that is due to copyright restrictions. As I mentioned before, anything post-1978 is usually restricted. So Eveleth range seen, as you can see there, 1979 through 1982. But we'll go ahead and we'll click on the Eveleth Republican, and it takes us right to the issue that we have of that particular paper. All right, we're going to start over. So anytime that you are ready to start a new search, when you're in the Browse Issues, there is that Start Over button that's over here on the top right-hand corner. You just click on that, and it'll take you back to Browse Issues. Nothing's been selected. So then there's About Titles. Now, this is a complete list of all the titles that are in the hub. Information about the title, the place of publication, publication frequency, the publication date span, and its access are all going to be listed here. Underlined titles indicate issues are freely accessible online. No underline indicates that the title is not accessible from our current location. The description will state, issues from this title can only be accessed from the Gale Family Library at the Minnesota History Center. As you can see right here with the advertiser from Mora, it gives that information right there. The year range for each title indicates the date span of publication, not necessarily what has been digitized by MNHS. So, AgriLight News, 1969 to 2019. Obviously, if it was before 1978, we would have digitized it, some of it. So everything that we've got for that particular title is going to be post-1978. It's probably more than likely going to be post-2008. So now we're going to go back and we're going to start with searching. So the hub features both a simple and advanced searching option on the search tab. To begin with, we would select one or more titles to search. So you can use the check mark right there to select your specific title that you would like. You can also just enter a short word or phrase into the search box. You can use wildcards. A wildcard would be a question mark or an asterisk. And the way that these would help you is a question mark will help you if you're not sure of a specific letter. Say you're looking for Olsen. Is it O-L-S-E-N or O-L-S-O-N? So you could put in O-L-S question mark N, and then any result of those two will come in. An asterisk mark, it must be used at the end of the word, and it doesn't depend about how many characters would come after it. Suffrage is a good example of this. So it ends with an E, but if you replace that E with an asterisk, then you get suffrage, suffragette, or suffragist. You can use both wildcards in the same search term. So with advanced searching, you can add up to 5 additional terms or parameters for your searching. You can do by date published or by a date range. You can also add search limits for, if you're looking specifically for the page content. The default is all, which will look for page content as well as looking in the metadata for the issue. So if you typed in Eveleth, it will give you the Eveleth newspapers, but it will also look in the information like who the donor information is. You can also look for specific titles, languages, place of publication, country, state, county, or city, as well as the funder. So if you're looking for all of our national digital newspaper projects, or if you're looking for everything that we did for Selco, it would have that information listed. So I'm going to go back to the slides so that I can show you an example that we have right here. So our researcher is looking for an obituary for their great-grandfather, Charles Jeremiah Spencer. And in their research, They only know his first name started with a C, and there were varying spellings of his last name. The researcher was able to determine that he passed away between 1885 and 1890 in Brown County and was a sheriff at one point. So from field 1 on here, we set a date range of January 1st, 1885 until 1890, December 31st. And then we made, from our drop-down menu, we made date range what we're searching in there. Next, because we weren't sure of the spelling of the last name, we put in S-P-E-N with an asterisk at the end, and that'll help give us anything after that point. And then we also searched for in county, Brown, and then searching under all the word sheriff. We came up with a series of results, and then we were able to start going through and looking for any information that would help us find the obituary for this researcher's great-grandfather. With those results, we're able to sort them by the relevance, which is how many times per that issue does those search terms appear. We're also able to sort by the publication date. So if we have a wide range of titles, like I said, we can sort them by the publication date. It'll go from the earliest date until the latest. It'll mix up all the titles. Then we can start filtering, and we can filter by title, date, location, like in the browse. And then we can also mess with some of the visuals. So right now we're displaying 4 columns. We can display 5 columns if we'd like, if we want to have more results. We can also, how many items per page, we can change that. The default is 50. We can change it up to 100 to get more results on our page. We can also lose the thumbnails if we'd like. There's a little button all the way over here to the right. Click on that, and then we would see just the text of the results. I don't know why you wouldn't want to look at the thumbnails. The thumbnails of the old newspaper pages is great. I say leave it. As always, previously viewed results will appear in red after you've looked at them. So we're going to do a couple of searches in the Eveleth newspapers. So we're going to go back to the hub here. Okay. So let's say you wanted to look at how July 4th was celebrated annually during the post-World War II years in Eveleth. And in particular, you wanted to see how a specific paper reported on those celebrations. So we would use the search function. We will unselect all. And this is going to be difficult if it's not going to let me select. Oh, thank goodness for touchscreens. There we go. Okay, so we wanted to look at the Eveleth News Clarion. So we select that from the drop-down menu. And then in our search terms, we will select a date range. So we're going to do from 1946 through 1960. I'm just going to make it very broad. And then, since these are July 4th celebrations that we're looking at, let's look for a couple of keywords that might be familiar to these kind of celebrations. So I looked up firework. And I'm going to add an asterisk at the end so that I also will get fireworks if I need to. And then I'm going to add another search term. and I added parade. Again, with an asterisk at the end so I can capture parades if that needs to come up. So since I'm searching for these two words, I'm only going to get results that are going to have both of these words in the search. So that may narrow down results. So sometimes it takes a couple of different times of searching through before you get exactly what you might be looking for. So we're going to search there. It's thinking. Okay. So we have our initial search results. Now, I want to narrow it down just a little bit more. I only want to see newspaper articles that were published in July. So I select in my filters month published, and I selected the 7th month. That gave us 27 results that we can look at. Now we want to sort our results. We want to look at the results from the earliest date to the most recent. So we have our sort function right over here. We click that down, and I'm going to choose publication date and title. So now the most recent issue of the Eveleth News Clarion, published July 4th, 1946. And when we click on that, it's thinking. It's thinking hard. There we go. Eveleth set for biggest fourth program on East Range. Full program to have fireworks. In that very first paragraph here, we can scroll. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that we can there you go. An elaborate 4th of July celebration. It's going to have a parade starting at 9:30 p.m. Wednesday evening. So you got fireworks and you have a parade. So we're going to go back. Now you can see that issue is now highlighted there in red. Lets me know that I have already looked at it. Not every result is going to fit in with our search question or what we're looking for. So let's go to January 3rd, 1947 for an example of this. So there's an editorial here, and it is about safe fireworks, and essentially about how unsafe fireworks can be. And there was also some information about a parade. Another hit is the 17th of 1947. There is information about a parade, but it is about Eveleth's 50th anniversary and homecoming parade. So you may be using the correct search terms, but this is a very big database. You may not always get the exact things you're looking for, but you may still find some pretty interesting stuff. So the next search that we're going to do, using some of our Eveleth newspapers. So we know that the great band leader, Duke Ellington, came and performed at the Eveleth Recreational Building. And our researcher is looking for this date because family lore, maybe some member of our family spotted across the room another and love blossomed. So we're going to use Duke Ellington as our keyword. And then we know that since we're looking through all these papers, he was a famous band leader. If we just did a search for just Duke Ellington, we are going to get thousands and thousands of hits. So let's narrow it down just a little bit further. And we are going to look up recreational, thank you, autocorrect, building as the other search term. Now this, I am searching through all the papers in the hub for this one. So we do our search. It thinks. Wonderful. So we have a lot of results. Let's narrow it down a little bit more and look for just Eveleth. Okay. So we have 7 results now. Let us look at, again, we're going to sort this by our publication date. And we're going to click on this first one to take a look. And when you are doing a search and you click on that selection there, it takes you directly to the page where those hits are. So there's some information there about the recreational building. Keep looking, and then here we go. Some information about Duke Ellington performing on August 26th, 1932 at the recreational building. So, and I'm going to remove this search term for a recreational building and just do a search for Duke Ellington in general. And just select one of these other. So you can see that only has one hit. All right, so search results. When you open up a page in the page viewer, you'll be brought to the first page of the issue in which any of your search results appear. All of your search results will be highlighted in yellow. You can change that if yellow is not a pleasing color to you. It's a little rough on the eyes. You can change it. There's blue, there's purple. For this particular page, our search term was Alexander Ramsey. Our search term is highlighted in yellow. The highlighted text will not appear when you print it or download it. In the hub parlance, anytime that a search term is found on a page, it's called a hit. In this, you can see that we have 4 hits in this particular issue, and that is told to you right over there, right underneath the number 1. So you could hit the next hit down here at the bottom. You have an arrow next to this 1. That'll take you to the next instance in that issue in which there is going to be that search term. There is also a menu there that you can pull up, and it will tell you which pages the search term is going to be found on. In this case, it was found on pages 1, 4, 6, and 10. So you can jump straight to there without having to scroll through all the different thumbnails. To view a different issue within the same search results, there is a search. You can select the search titles button, which is that right there, and that'll take you back. Or select the search document arrow, which is that number 3, right next to the search button. And from that, you can go to the next issue in which is going to be on the search results list. So next, we're going to talk about translating text. This is a very useful tool. Like I've mentioned, we've worked on some Swedish American newspapers, and this has been incredibly helpful when working on those. In the page viewer, there's a text clipping tool in the shape of a scissor at the bottom of the page. You would click and drag the crosshairs for that tool over the text block of text that you would like to have translated. When you do that, a pop-up window will appear with the text highlighted. And then at the bottom of that window, it says Google Translate. When you click on that, Google Translate will open up in a new browser tab, and you will get the full translation of that text. You may need to make some corrections to the OCR. There are some problems that do come up. I'll go over those in just a moment. And Google Translate is not 100% accurate. You should be able to get a good idea of what the text is, but you may notice some inaccuracies. That could be either because of Google Translate or because of the OCR. You can also use the text clipping tool for English papers if you just wanted to have that as a text so you can copy and paste that into a separate document. So that's one thing that you can do as well. So as I mentioned, the OCR may not be perfect. Poor OCR is a result of page imperfections caused by several factors. We have a lot of different examples right here. Some of these are printer errors or damage to or degradation of the newspaper pages prior to the microfilming. Others are because of poor microfilming. So some faded text sometimes appears. The text, it was filmed too bright or too dark. And so the OCR will not come through on that. There also could be damage to the microfilm that caused by improper storage that caused the text to not be legible on the microfilm. Errors in OCR text because of these factors can limit the quality of your searches. Articles are sometimes also cut out of the newspapers we have found. When we have scanned them and we are working them through DocWiz, all of a sudden there's just a gap somewhere. You'll never know what it is. Keep in mind that just because something does not appear in your search, it does not mean that there are no search results for it. You can try altering your search term or also just keep looking around in the issue to see if the information is there that you're looking for. And then lastly, there is a help tab, and this will take you to ProSeek's help page. This is very comprehensive, but it is a great place to start if you run into any issues. Well, hopefully you do run into issues of newspapers, but if you run into any issues with the website. There are some quick tips, which is great for new users, and there's also some detailed instructions for browsing, for page viewing, for searching, and for printing. And then if you run into any serious problems, you can always email us at MNHS. The email address is newspapers@mnhs.org. So I'm going to talk about some other resources that are available to you for your research outside of just the Digital Newspaper Hub. The first is Chronicling America. This is a joint operation between the Library of Congress and the NEH, National Endowment of the Humanities. It has newspapers from all 50 states, including several territories, over 4,229 titles, over 20 million pages, 26 different languages. It is mostly made up of papers digitized as part of the NDMP project. We've participated in the NDMP project. We've received 7 grants. They're 2-year grants, and that's since 2007. All Minnesota papers that are in Chronicling America will be found on the Hub as well. But you will find many more outside of Minnesota on here. Numerous states also have their own online newspaper database with many additional digitized titles. I know that California and Texas have both set up very similar sites to ours.
Do they have just early papers?
Oh, yeah.
They broadened out now?
Early. Yeah, I don't remember what the first year, off the top of my head, I don't remember. I do know that they, for the 250th anniversary, they are having a focus on more early papers. So. Then there's the Swedish American Newspapers website. This is a separate website, looks just like the Hub, same functionality, but it's a collaboration between us and the National Library of Sweden. It includes 37 titles at this time with 340,000 pages from 11 different states, mostly in the Swedish language. A second phase of this was started last year with an additional 900,000 newspaper pages, from many more cities across the United States and including some from Canada. The titles on the Swedish American portal page will have an essay for each title, as well as introductory essays on Swedish immigration and Swedish American newspaper publishing, as well as some search tips included for non-Swedish speakers. So the last thing I'm going to talk to you about is the Pioneer Press collection. We're starting to use a new software called Veridian. And the Veridian software, if you have a basic understanding of how to search using the ProSeek software, a lot of the same principles will apply when searching in Veridian. So on the front page, you will find information about the St. Paul Pioneer Press collection. There is a on this day, it's randomly generated, so you can hit refresh on your newspaper and get a brand new front page. There's also a browse by title, a browse by date, and a browse by map, very similar to what is in the hub. Right now, the only thing that is on those is St. Paul and the Pioneer Press, so it's very, very limited. So browsing by date, there's a, browsing by title. Jumped ahead one. There is a browse by title button on the main page, but then you can also, across the top bar of the home page is the browse, and you can pull that down and choose browse by title. You'll find all the titles that are available right now. It's all of 2. The St. Paul Daily Press, which ran from 61 to 75, and then the Pioneer Press, which ran from 75 to 1961. That is all that is included in this particular collection. Then there is a browse by date option. The calendar looks different, but it functions essentially the same way. You would select a year, select a month, and then every date in which there is a newspaper will have a line underneath it for you to select. And then there is the search function. This is where it gets a little bit different, but that's really mostly in how the search results are brought back to you. When you search for keywords, you can use a search button that is right there. Search bar is on the front page, or there is also a search button that will take you to all your different search options. The search results will now appear in the context of the page in which they are in. A clip of the page with the search term highlighted will be viewable, so you can see the results to see if it's along the lines of what you're looking for. So in this particular search, we search for medicine. Are the results that we're looking for about election results from Yellow Medicine County, or are they about Duffy's Pure Malt Whiskey as a family medicine? You can also search results by date or by title and use the filters for decades and years, city, state, county, language, or title. And as you can see, the limiters are a little limited because right now the only thing that is in there is St. Paul or the Pioneer Press. So this is how when you find a search result and you click on it, this is what it will look like. You will get all the OCR for that particular page on the left-hand side, and any of your search results will be highlighted yellow on the page. A clip of the page with the search term highlighted will be viewable. Oh, yep, sorry, I went back one now. A toolkit will be also present that will allow you to move on to the next page. There's a zoom in and zoom out function as well. You can rotate the page, or you can add the page to a private list. In order to use the private list or to use text correction, you would just have to register with your email and a password. You can also clip your search results or create a PDF of the entire page for your search results. For clipping, there's a scissors within your toolkit. Again, you would just create a box around what you want your clip to be, and then you would have the option of being able to print it. When you are logged in, after you've registered your account, there will be a button for PDF, and that will allow you to create a PDF of the entire page. And then the last thing is text correction. This is something that's kind of new to the Veridian site. As we've covered, there may be issues, however minimal, with the way that OCR presents itself. The imperfections in the original newspaper or in the quality of the microfilm. When you're logged in, you can visit a page, select a block of text, and make the corrections, and then save those corrections. We have on the back end, we're able to see how many different users have gone in and done text correction, or how many total pages have been corrected. And so far, it's not as popular of a tool as I was hoping it would be, but I'm having fun with it.
I didn't know that we could do that. There have been things that I put on my desktop and then fixed so I could print it out, so I could understand it, but I didn't know we had the option to help you do those text corrections.
You know, on the hub itself, I have not seen that. So this is new with the Veridian,
Okay.
And it's just a matter of registering with an email and a password, and then you're able to get in and do this. In this particular example, December 1st, the OCR originally picked it up as lowercase p, capital PC, dot I, capital I. So the OCR can be a little squirrely sometimes. So this is really useful. I think this is going to be great, especially with the Swedish American stuff. Or really early newspapers, because those will sometimes have some OCR issues.
That's what I was in.
Yeah. Well, I have stories. So I know that some folks here do have experience with working with MNHS and starting projects. But if you haven't worked with MNHS before on any digitization project in the past, you may be wondering about how to begin one. So we digitized from our original microfilm newspaper collection. So if you're ever interested, the first step would be contacting us and letting us know about what kind of project you would be interested in. That would, if you're interested in a particular paper or a particular date range, or even just a county or a particular subject. We can then work with you on getting a list of the microfilm and page counts and how much we actually have in our collection. Due to copyright considerations, as I mentioned earlier, we generally digitize newspapers published between 1849 and 1977. Later papers may be digitized and posted publicly with the written permission of the publisher and or another copyright holder. The minimum size for a newspaper digitization project is 1 reel. Projects can be divided into phases as funding allows. New digitization projects are generally scheduled for completion about 12 months from the time of funding. The current cost of digitization is $1 per page, plus $25 per reel for copyright research if needed. Past partner digitization projects have used several types of funding sources: individual donors, community fundraising, such as Friends of Libraries programs, or heritage committees, as well as local grants. The Minnesota Historical and Cultural Heritage Grants, known as legacy grants, administered by MNHS, are not eligible for newspaper digitization projects with MNHS. These grants can be used for microfilming of newspapers as a precursor to digitization. So far, I've talked about digitization from the microfilm, but if your library has any individual issues, physical issues, you can always contact us about those, and we can discuss that as a project as well. Any further questions about that? And as I mentioned before, our email is newspapers@mnhs.org. So why digitize with MNHS? There's a few different reasons. The first benefit is the quality of the images. We digitize from the master negative, so it's going to be the cleanest, best possible digitization that you can get. The microfilm held by local libraries and historical societies are sometimes positives taken from MNHS film, purchased at some point. They've been heavily used in microfilm readers and are likely to be worn or scratched in addition to being second or third generation copies. And digital images made from this film can be of a lesser quality. Next is digital files specification. We work in the NDMP format, so that's where we get our preservation copies, we get our copies for display on the website, as well as the OCR text being in its own XML file. Very few commercial vendors in the US offer digitization to the NDMP specs, and the specifications are publicly available on the Chronicling America site, but most vendors are unable to digitize to the spec due to its detailed requirements. The third benefit is preservation. Digitizing with MNHS means that MNHS will take on the task of long-term preservation of these digital files. Access files used for viewing on the hub are stored on up-to-date live servers. Separate preservation files are saved to our preservation servers and to data storage tapes. The one copy of those tapes is then kept in climate-controlled storage, and the second copy is kept in an off-site repository for safety. Digital files on servers or hard drives can be subject to hardware failure or file degradation known as bit rot. Multiple backups, regular test of file integrity, and refreshing of backups to new storage media helps ensure the long-term preservation of these files. So when MNHS digitizes the newspapers, we take on all of these tasks. And the fourth benefit is hosting. We take on the task of long-term hosting for these files. The issues are presented along with well over 8 million other digital newspaper pages and growing every month. This allows users to search and browse a large collection of Minnesota newspapers all in one place for free. The Newspaper Hub offers full-text searching across all of its issues and titles at once, with filtering available to limit search by specific titles, locations, date spans, topical interest, and more. Hosting and preservation services mean that our partners don't have to have an IT staff available for these functions and do not have to worry about the ongoing staff time and costs associated with them. We're always happy to provide copies of our digitized newspaper files to our partner organizations if they would like to host them themselves, however. Thank you very much for your time today, and if you have any questions, I would love to answer them. Okay. Thank you.
So instead of going to the website, we just call you and search your online database?
You can always email. Yeah, newspapers@mnhs.org. And if you have any research questions, if you're looking in the hub and you come across anything that maybe you're not getting the information you really need, the Gale Family Library is a great resource, and you can always send questions to them, reference questions to them, and they can look a little bit further for you. Actually, he had a question first, and then I'll come to you, Roger.
Were you going to give a little sample of,
The Viridian?
well, no, where we know how to find something, so to speak. Well, once you've got the page on your screen, and you have a nice article, whatever you want to save it. So it's either with copy or screenshot or
Sure.
is it a JPEG or?
Let me show you right here. So we're going to go back to our search for Duke Ellington. Again, only one hit on this one. But let's say,
Like, you just take that centerpiece with the picture and the article on the Rainbow New Director or something.
sounds good. So at the bottom of your screen, there's your text clipping tool. That's this pair of scissors down here at the bottom. So if you click on that, you now have your cursor is now a little crosshairs. So you just click and you drag that over the space that you would like to have clipped. Oh, that's the text. There we go. So used to working with the OCR. Okay. All right, so we'll start this again then. Okay, so down here all the way over to your right, there's a little download feature. When you click on that, it gives you two options: the add page to print bundle or add selection to print bundle. In this particular case, we want to add a selection, and yes, we'll highlight this center area right here. Okay. And now you see that right next to that, we now have a printer added, cursor has been added, icon, as well as one. That's how many items there are that we're looking to download. So it is downloaded. Let's go ahead and show this in the folder. We now have a PDF of just that clip. And we can print that one clip out if we'd like to. Let's go back to our page.
I wasn't sure, were you clicking on the printer symbol or the in-between?
You can click on both, and it'll do it for you. You can add the whole page to the bundle, or multiple pages to your bundle. So I'm going to click on page 1, and then I'm also going to click on page 9. You see that now both, I used the control button. So I did 1, control, and clicked on page 9. Now those 2 pages are highlighted in blue. I'm going to click OK. All right. Now I have a bundle of those 2 pages ready to be printed. So when I press the print button, it's going to download it as a PDF. Now we have our masthead page, page 1, and then the page 9 that I wanted as well. So I've got the full pages.
Would you be looking to do the cropping first so you have it done with, or would you be doing some of that manipulation as the, I mean, if you got the whole page saved,
Right.
and say you still wanted that one area,
Right. So if you want just that one area,
but you already have saved the page.
right, you've saved the whole page, in which case you can always, if the whole page works for you, then you can have that. But if you specifically just want that one little article, if it's just one little note in your genealogy research or one little note with an interesting quote or something, then you can use that add selection to print bundle and do your little clip.
But sometimes you want the title page of the
Yep.
paper with the date and everything.
Yep. So you can do that as well. Both options are available to you. And you can do multiple clippings as well.
You
So,
see clarity or the quality better if you go in first and then save it versus coming off the full page PDF?
I would say that if you are
Or whereas if it were a JPEG, you'd get grainy.
right, I would say that if you are really only interested, say you were only really interested in this one article, I would just make the clipping of just the one article, as opposed to making a PDF, because then you would have to zoom in on the PDF. The quality will still be good, but if you want just that one little snippet, that was
the file size so great
right.
that you're going to be exploding.
Fortunately, as a PDF, you know, that those 2 pages were still only 3 megabytes, so it's not terribly large.
Is there a place where you can get, if you get a snippet or, you know, a cropping of an article, is there a place where you can get it printed on actual newspaper style paper?
Oh,
And so you, in case you wanted it framed or something like that?
that's a really good question. I don't know of any particular services that do that. That would be something that you would, like, I think even like most printing places, I think commercial printing places, like FedEx or something like that, don't do it onto newsprint.
Sure.
We have one printer in Virginia, Fisher, they make the big maps and everything. They publish brochures and other things.
W.A. Fisher.
Yeah.
So
So
I also talked to Andrew's camera.
Oh, yeah.
They do a lot of specialty types of things. I'm just throwing that out there
Yeah,
as
they
a
do a
thought.
lot of vintage stuff.
Yeah.
yeah, that would take some little bit of researching to find. That isn't something that we've looked into.
Okay, sure.
But someone must do it because there are a lot of commemorative issues that get published or for events and stuff.
I have an article on my wall. Great.
I know that I know at the state fair every year there is a newspaper booth where they publish like a daily newspaper on newsprint.
Okay, sure. At the state fair, you said?
Yeah, at the state fair every year they publish like a state fair edition of the daily newspaper.
So is that a booth at the state fair?
The one time that I saw it, it was like in an alcove of I think the education building or something like that.
Okay.
So it was a part of one of the buildings. It was inside one of the buildings. It was really cool. They had an old printing press.
Wow.
Does anyone have any other questions? Yes, Miss.
No question, but just a comment. So I use this a lot,
Thank you.
and you have showed me things to make me way more efficient.
Awesome.
There were things that I was like, oh, I've never like added this term. So I was doing this article on a gentleman named David, and just being able to say David or Dave, because I'm like, every time I would search, like, oh, what did they call him in this article? I'm like, yeah, this would save me so much time. So
Fantastic.
thank you.
I hope that.
Yeah, all the things. Yeah.
That's great. I mean, that was part of the reason of coming up was to spend some time showing things like the advanced searching and some of the other things that you can do. While I'm here, I can show you a little bit more of the Pioneer Press collection, since we have a couple of minutes. Oh, my search is saved. It's almost as if it knew. it had to make sure that I was a real human first. So, like I said, when you do your search, you get these little snippets where you get to see the context of your search within the newspaper page, which is really helpful. So you can find out about old baseball scores. Because I used Washington senators, also it will give us some political pages based on what's happening in Washington at that time. So that's where using an advanced search will be a little bit useful, because then you can narrow it down, adding a term like baseball.
What is your favorite baseball article that you've searched?
It's kind of sad. I came across one that was the day that Lou Gehrig was benched.
Oh.
And it's one of those examples that I come across every once in a while where you read it and you go, oh, if you only knew. Because the person's writing this editorial and it's like, Lou Gehrig isn't playing good, and you know, he's just a little slower, the bat speed's not there, all this stuff. But you know what? He's going to get rested, and he'll be back. And he never played another game. And you know, the following week's paper did have, you know, Lou Gehrig is retired, and you know, the farewell and everything. So I remember seeing that, and that was like, oh, if you only knew, like you would pay a bigger homage to this great player.
But very historical.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and then just for, I always like to look at, when we're doing papers from the 40s, I like to look how different papers reported on Jackie Robinson coming to the big leagues. That's, baseball history is my personal interest, so I like to look at that kind of stuff.
Or when Kirby Puckett's eyes started to fade.
I don't look at much of the 90s papers. I see mostly the historical ones. But when we have done, the last 90s paper that I really remember us doing was we did a run for what became the Spokesman Recorder. It was the Spokesman and the Recorder, Minneapolis Spokesman, St. Paul Recorder. We did a run of those for the 90s, and so we got a chance to see the World Series through their eyes at that time, you know, kind of contemporary as it's happening. Which is one of the interesting parts about working on historical newspapers, is you do get to see sort of history happening with fresh eyes as it is happening. So. Is anyone else? Yes.
St. Paul Fire Press, should we be sticking with the Historical Society website and grabbing the newspaper articles, or are you suggesting we go over to that website and newer software?
So for Viridian, right now the only thing that is on there is the Pioneer Press. The Pioneer Press is not on the hub, on the ProSeek hub. Right now it is just on this new Viridian hub, and that's the only title that's on there is the Pioneer Press from 1861 to 1961.
But the Historical Society will be...
It's going to be a very slow process, and for a while it's going to be just the Pioneer Press. But yeah, the whole process is getting all the old backup tapes, and you know, we have to make sure that everything is still there and still good, and then start moving stuff over. So it's going to be, I think, a multi-year project starting next year sometime.
we got a little one.
You have plenty of time before worrying about, you know, making the switch over to Viridian. For right now, all the rest of the Minnesota papers are going to be on the ProSeek hub.
Do you work with universities at all?
A little bit. I mentioned the Yiddish paper. That was we partnered with the one of the archives at the University of Minnesota for that. And I think I might be wrong on this, so I guess don't quote me. But I believe the Farmer's Life, some of that came from, I want to say U of M Duluth. They had some of the individual issues for that. So yeah, sometimes another institution will have microfilm that we will use. That was for an NDMP project. We wanted to do that title, and they had another institution had a run that we needed. So. But yeah, we've partnered with U of M on some Minitex. Is their digitization arm. So we've worked with the U of M libraries on that, and we've worked with the Internet Archive on some digitization early on. So some Minnesota newspapers will be found on there as well. Any other questions from anyone? Yes.
This is extremely new to me. The papers that you use today, can I get a copy? Because you just kind of threw a lot at us, or no? Or it's not like it's not a book.
But it's my script.
Oh, it's a script. Okay. No, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. Okay.
But if you do have any questions, I can give you my email, and as you're beginning your research, we can always help you out. If there's anything specific that you have a question about right now, I can also take some time to show you.
And did you say it's going to be on TV, or why it's being filmed, or?
Access12tv.com.
And then there's also that too, so you can watch it at your leisure and
Okay.
sorry if I went too fast on
No.
I know that UMD, I think, has a museum archivist program. I think it's a certificate or something.
I haven't looked into that one.
Maybe it is a bachelor.
Yeah. The only MLIS I know of in Minnesota, and this may have changed since I first went to school, was at St. Kate's in St. Paul,
Okay.
which is where a lot of, I know a lot of people have gone to that program.
I think it's a newer program that UMD did
Okay.
in the last 5-10 years.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's after.
And there have been some tech programs coming up, but not necessarily the fall.
There was a really good library tech program at Minneapolis College until recently for an associate's degree. That was for distance learning. That was really good. All right. Of course. No, thank you all of you for having me here today.